From 1939 to 1945, humanity faced its darkest, most violent storm. This was World War II. And in the heart of that storm, some moments changed everything. It began with a flash of steel and fire. Blitzkrieg. In September 1939, Germany unleashed a new kind of warfare on Poland. Lightning-fast attacks, ruthless coordination between tanks, planes, and infantry. Poland crumbled in weeks. Then, like dominoes, Denmark, Norway, Belgium, and the mighty France fell. The French had trusted in old defenses like the Maginot Line, but German tanks simply rolled through the Ardennes, a forest they thought was impassable. It was a brutal lesson. In war, speed and innovation can crush the unprepared. But even in defeat, the spirit to fight can ignite miracles. On the beaches of Dunkirk, nearly 400,000 British and French troops stood trapped, surrounded by German forces. Then came the call. Every ship, every boat, every soul who could sail was summoned. Fishing boats, ferries, private yachts, an entire nation crossed the channel under fire, rescuing over 330,000 soldiers. Dunkirk wasn't a victory in the traditional sense, but it was a victory of hope, and it steeled Britain to fight on when surrender seemed inevitable. Then, on June 22, 1941, came betrayal on a monstrous scale. Germany turned on its former ally, the Soviet Union, in Operation Barbarossa, the largest land invasion in history. 3 million German soldiers surged eastward, conquering city after city. But as the Russian winter sank its teeth into the battlefield, German tanks froze, soldiers suffered in 40-degree cold, and the Red Army struck back with brutal force at Moscow. It was a reminder, carved into the frozen earth, that arrogance and poor planning are death sentences in war. Meanwhile, across the Pacific, another sleeping giant stirred. On a quiet Sunday morning, December 7, 1941, Pearl Harbor exploded under a hail of Japanese bombs. Battleships burned, aircraft shattered. Over 2,400 Americans died in minutes. Japan hoped to cripple the U.S. before it could fight back, but instead, it awakened a force more powerful than they ever imagined. The next day, the United States declared war, and the world's most industrialized nation entered the bloodiest fight in human history. If the war had a breaking point, it came in the shattered streets of Stalingrad. Here, from August 1942 to February 1943, Germany and the Soviet Union waged a battle so savage it turned the city into hell itself. Every room, every stairwell, every factory became a battleground. When winter fell, the Soviets encircled the German Sixth Army. Hitler had refused retreat, but his soldiers were going through hell. Freezing, starving, and desperate, the Germans finally surrendered, marking a turning point from which the Nazis would never recover. At Stalingrad, the myth of German invincibility was buried beneath the snow and blood, but liberation would not come easily. On June 6, 1944, the Allies launched D-Day, the greatest amphibious invasion ever attempted. 156,000 troops crossed the English Channel and stormed the beaches of Normandy under a storm of bullets and shells. At Omaha Beach, Americans faced fierce machine gun fire and deadly obstacles, but pushed through with sheer determination. Specialized tanks, Hobart's funnies, cleared mines, smashed defenses, and opened the way inland. D-Day showed that courage, planning, and raw willpower could overcome even the deadliest fortresses. Finally, after brutal fighting across the Pacific Islands, America faced a terrible choice. Invading Japan could cost millions of lives, or they could unleash a terrible new weapon. On August 6, 1945, Hiroshima vanished in a blinding flash. 3 days later, Nagasaki followed. The atomic bomb ended the war, but at a price that scarred the soul of humanity. The dawn of the nuclear age reminded us that the greatest power often comes with the gravest consequences. World War II was more than battles and borders. It was a crucible that tested humanity's spirit, its capacity for innovation, its willingness to endure unimaginable loss, and its hope for something better. And it left us with a truth we must never forget. Peace is fragile. Freedom is precious, and history can turn on a single moment.